I'm currently sat in the car park to Great Ayton Moor, where there is an amazing site called Great Ayton Moor Bank Cairn. It's one of the most amazing sites here, and unfortunately, I can't show you it because Storm Dara is currently hitting, and for some reason, I thought it'd be a good idea to head out in it. During a storm! What am I thinking? Going up there and looking at Great Ayton Moor Bank Cairn, I was going to describe it as a ritual enclosure. And that got me thinking, do people know what the word ritual means? Because quite often the word ritual is sort of poo-pooed as something archaeologists and anthropologists use to describe things they don't understand. So an object that's just a bit weird gets described as a ritual object. A building that's a bit weird gets called a ritual building. An enclosure, so on and so forth. So come on a journey with me through the world of anthropology and philosophy while we discuss the word ritual.
Imagine, if you will, a small prehistoric community. Every evening, they make a detour on their way home to pass the empty house of their once great, now deceased leader, a person they really respected. Over time, over decades maybe, this detour becomes a ritual. They start lighting torches on special occasions like the solstices, and eventually they erect large stones and build earthworks around the house to honour the leader and the ritual he inspired. The site becomes a place for the community-wide celebration of the winter solstice sunrise, and eventually the leader is forgotten. As time passes, the story of the house fades from memory, and today all that remains is a partially ruined stone circle in a field, known only to a few archaeologists. In this example, an ordinary house becomes a place of ritual significance. This eventually led to the creation of a special enclosure, and over time, the ritual idea became firmly linked to the place and its activities. First, we can think of rituals as a kind of action. In this sense, we use the word ritual both as an adjective, like ritual site, and as a verb, like to ritualize. These ritual actions may involve groups of people, individuals acting alone, or even internal thoughts. In all cases, rituals are deliberate actions with intent and purpose. Such actions have historically been linked to religious ceremonies, serving as performances to be observed by the divine or sacred entities revered by a culture. Fundamentally, the Oxford English Dictionary traces the term ritual to Middle French, where it means actions pertaining to religious rites. Traditional English definitions often emphasise this religious aspect, with the Oxford Classical Dictionary defining ritual as a symbolic activity within a religious context. Essentially, any act can be regarded as ritual when framed by religious purposes. Common examples of religious rituals include things like prayer, meditation, sacrifice, fasting, pilgrimages, or even acts of violence. Of course, figuring out what actions are religious is a whole other kettle of fish. The definition of religion has changed over time, and it's not easy to know exactly for sure what actions are being performed for higher powers. That being said, obviously, religion is easy to spot when you see it, and it basically involves the belief and worship of a higher power. Simple. However, many researchers believe that rituals do have a special something that makes them different from common everyday actions. This special something can be seen as the outward expression of a deeper inner meaning. So, we have an outer action and an inner meaning. For example, a supposed ritual might seem fake or inauthentic if it doesn't have an inner component that changes or reinforces the participant's thoughts, feelings, or beliefs. So, if sporting a hat is for purely cultural reasons, it's not ritualistic. But if it's for a god to witness, it suddenly becomes a ritual action. Even though rituals can have different purposes, it is this inner change that makes them a ritual, not just the outward actions themselves. In this sense, rituals, whether created on purpose or developed gradually over time, help spread shared ideas within a group. This idea of a ritual as a kind of communicative ritual action is common, even outside of academic circles, and I imagine when you say the word ritual to someone, this is the first thing that crops into their mind. But even though rituals are easy to see and connected to specific places like temples, enclosures, or shrines, just knowing they exist does not explain how they came to be. For example, hearing black gospel music in an American church does not tell us how or why the church was built. From an archaeological standpoint, that is a major problem, as it then becomes impossible to nail down what objects, places, or people could be considered ritual. While the idea of a ritual as a communicative religious action is common, the meaning of ritual has expanded over the 19th and 20th centuries. What was once described as like a ritual slowly became simply a new type of ritual. Thinkers like Sigmund Freud and Erving Goffman explored the human psychology behind religions and rituals, and this led to the word ritual being used in fields like sociology and psychology. Archaeologists, too, have also started using this term more broadly. This broader view sees ritual as a quality of an action, or as an idea. In this sense, a site can become ritualized if it becomes connected to an individual's or a society's ideas. Archaeological discoveries support this idea. Excavations at Avebury, for example, suggest that simple dwellings may have evolved into elaborate megalithic enclosures. Landscapes can become special places, not just because of how they look, but because of the stories and meanings people have attached to them.
Hello everybody, you meet me here in the Lake District National Park, in what is called the Langdale Valley, which stretches on right past those mountains over there, known as the Langdale Pikes. Now, during the Neolithic period, 5,000 years ago, it was at the top of those mountains that people were quarrying stone to make stone axes, what people believed to have been ritual objects that are quite often found in burials stretching 1,000 years from when they were first quarried. So, whatever was going on up there in that natural space was ritualistic. And we could consider those mountains to be, ritual mountains. Why were people going to the top of those mountains to source stone they can get down on the valley floor? Well, it could have been a ritual.
This happens over time and all the time, and often without anyone really planning it. Think of a beautiful natural spot that might hold deep meaning for a community. Or imagine a building created to teach moral lessons. These places become more than just physical locations. They become part of the way people understand their world. It's tricky for archaeologists to uncover these ritual landscapes because they're not always marked by obvious physical signs. Instead, they exist in the minds of the people who experience them. It's easy to think that all ancient landscapes were built just for ceremonies, but it's much harder to grasp the deeper thoughts and feelings of the people who actually use these places. What did they actually believe? How did these places make them feel? Some archaeologists believe we should explore these questions, and they have suggested using a method called phenomenology, which focuses on understanding how people interpret and create meaning in their surroundings. The phenomenon, how you actually look around and see the world. Instead of searching for hard evidence, we might need to consider different historical possibilities, understanding the stories behind physical remains, not just what's left. The word ritual can also refer to something much more basic and ingrained in human behaviour. It's not just about religious ceremonies or cultural traditions. Instead, think of it as describing the automatic, almost unconscious things we do. Psychologists often use the word ritual in this sense to talk about repetitive behaviours like habits or compulsions. These actions might not have a clear reason behind them, but we do them anyway. This is completely different and divorced from religious rituals, which usually have a specific purpose and are based on a belief system. When, for instance, someone performs a religious rite, they believe it has a real effect on the world because of their faith. But if it's unconscious, you don't think anything. Everyday life is filled with ritual that you don't even think about. Things like saying please and thank you, shaking hands when we meet someone, or even the way we dress. These are all examples of what some call formal patterning. However, I'm going to quickly discount this kind of ritual before I get too deep into it, because in that sense we are using the word ritual metaphorically to say it's like a religious ritual, something you do repetitively. So, the definition of ritual I would use is this: a deliberate communicative action, often linked to religious ceremonies, serving as performances intended to be observed by the divine or sacred entities revered by a culture. So yeah, that's my definition of ritual. You know, if you want to say, oi mate, that's not a ritual, feel free to quote me and say, Adam Morgan Ibbotson says this. I would like you all to hold hands around a turkey and pray for Adam Morgan Ibbotson's book, Cumbria's Prehistoric Monuments, to do extremely well. In fact, why not buy yourselves a copy and, I don't know, sing carols around the Christmas tree about ring cairns and round cairns and stone circles if you fancy. Come one, come all, come Christmas cheer, thank you one and all, and have a merry, merry Christmas. From me to you, Adam Morgan Ibbotson, signing out. If you enjoy this video, I want you all to smash that like button and remember to subscribe. It's weird how I've got so many viewers on some of my videos, yet none of them subscribe. I don't know if it's because it's an older audience or what, but they seem to be tuning in anyway without subscribing. Weird. But do subscribe. Don't be stupid.